are the four players that the Indiana Fever should core to make sure that no team can touch them heading into the expansion. Remember, you just lose these players straight up. You don't get anything back for the players. They're gone. We didn't get anything for Temi, did we? No.
Welcome back to the Clark Update. Wnba fans, this is a story you're definitely going to want to hear. A major controversy is surrounding the Indiana Fever, with reports claiming that Stephanie White has made a shocking move involving several Fever players following alleged locker room drama. Let's get into the video. The Indiana Fever have completely dominated social media feeds and sports headlines, becoming one of the most talked about teams in the league. Their every move is analyzed on podcasts, discussed across sports bars, and debated online after every game. But what if the real story isn't happening on the court? What if the incredible plays, wins, and losses we've been watching are only distractions from a much deeper drama behind closed doors? Whispers about a fractured locker room have grown into a noise that can no longer be ignored or dismissed as simple rumors. Behind the highlights, post-game interviews, and carefully planned press conferences, something appears to have been happening inside the organization. Head coach Stephanie White has reportedly taken action, carrying out a strategy that may have been developing for months, including the abrupt removal of several players in rapid succession. If you appreciate this content, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. It's free and only takes a second, but it means the world to us. So, have you subscribed already? Great. Thank you so much for your support. Now, back to the video. But was this really about strategic roster construction and team building, the kind of difficult decisions championship organizations sometimes have to make? Or was it a last-ditch attempt to regain control of a team that was approaching complete dysfunction? Could this have been an effort to rescue a season that was beginning to fall apart? As reports of internal conflict within the Fever began circulating, the basketball world watched with a mixture of curiosity, concern, and fascination. What started as vague whispers in arena hallways and unverified reports from anonymous sources gradually developed into a much bigger organizational story, potentially threatening what many believed could be a defining season for the franchise. The question everyone wants answered is simple but significant. What really happened in Indianapolis? To understand the current situation, we have to go back. This wasn't always the Indiana Fever. A few years ago, the franchise was viewed as one of the league's more respected organizations, a symbol of consistency and professionalism. The team had passionate supporters and a strong basketball identity. But professional sports can be unforgiving, and eventually the Fever had to confront the reality every organization eventually faces: rebuild or risk becoming irrelevant. The decision to hire Stephanie White was not made casually. The front office reportedly studied hours of film from her previous coaching positions, conducted extensive interviews, and consulted people throughout the league. White had an impressive basketball background and experience as both a player and coach in Indiana. She understood the market and was viewed as someone capable of restoring the defensive discipline and identity that had once defined Fever basketball. At the same time, the franchise made another major decision by drafting generational talent. On draft night, the arena erupted when Caitlin Clark's name was announced. Fans immediately felt renewed optimism. Headlines exploded across the media, and the front office could see the enormous business potential. Ticket sales, jersey sales, increased revenue, and more national television exposure. Clark represented everything modern basketball had become: creative, dynamic, unconventional, and incredibly entertaining. But during those exciting moments, few people stopped to ask a crucial question. What happens when a player who thrives on freedom and creativity is paired with a coach who prioritizes structure and discipline? What happens when a team is built around a superstar, but the coach believes that superstars should be treated exactly like everyone else? Those decisions may have planted the seeds of the conflict now being discussed. Choices that initially looked brilliant may have created a fundamental clash between personalities, philosophies, and basketball styles. If you knew where to look, the warning signs were there. At first, they were subtle, but week by week, they became harder to ignore. Before the controversy became widely discussed, experienced reporters and league insiders who had followed the WNBA for years began noticing unusual signs. To the average viewer watching games on television, The situation could easily have looked like a team simply adjusting to a new system. New players need time to learn a playbook. Chemistry takes time to develop. Coaches need time to understand their players and establish rotations. These are the standard explanations offered after disappointing losses. But people with access to practices, players, and the organization's inner workings reportedly saw something more concerning: a fundamental disagreement over basketball philosophy that was beginning to damage team cohesion. Stephanie White was known for her demanding, defense-first approach and direct communication style. She now had a roster featuring some of the league's most explosive offensive talent. Her coaching philosophy emphasized discipline, structure, and a relentless possession-by-possession mentality. She wanted every player to understand their role and execute it precisely. She valued defensive accountability and believed opponents should have to earn every point. But according to the narrative surrounding the team, this went beyond ordinary tactical disagreements. It became a battle over the identity of the team itself. Inside practices and film sessions, the conflict reportedly represented innovation versus experience, freedom versus structure, and old-school basketball versus a newer, more creative style. And like any prolonged conflict, it began producing casualties. Anyone watching closely could supposedly sense the tension. During timeouts, body language sometimes appeared to tell a different story than the words being spoken. Players might nod during defensive instructions, yet look at one another during offensive discussions. When certain plays were called, some players appeared frustrated. When teammates attempted shots outside the system, others reportedly reacted with visible disagreement. The bench atmosphere also seemed inconsistent. After a huge defensive stop, the entire group might stand and celebrate. Then, following an offensive highlight, only part of the bench would rise while others remained seated. Longtime league veterans understood those symptoms. They had seen dysfunctional teams before. According to sources close to the organization, there were concerns about coaching authority, players forming separate camps, and increasingly tense interactions behind closed doors. One report claimed White regularly stopped practice to correct offensive positioning, while a player reportedly argued that the positioning had actually created an open shot. Another account described a film session where the room appeared divided, with some players sitting near the front and actively following White's explanations while others remained farther back with their arms crossed and visibly disengaged. The front office reportedly tried to intervene. Private meetings were held with important players, sports psychologists were brought in to address team chemistry, and advice was allegedly sought from other coaches around the league about managing strong personalities. But problems like this have a way of finding cracks in the walls. Eventually, something had to give. As the pressure continued building, the internal conflict began appearing more frequently during the season. The Fever's on-court performances became increasingly inconsistent. One night, they looked like legitimate championship contenders, with their offense clicking and their defense shutting opponents down. Then, in the next game, they struggled against teams they should have been capable of beating, looking disorganized and uninspired. Post-game interviews became exercises in reading between the lines. White would discuss the importance of buying into the system and doing things correctly. Players would give diplomatic answers about still learning how to play together and finding chemistry. The words sounded harmless, but the subtext appeared increasingly obvious. The media began asking more direct questions about coaching philosophy and team cohesion. Social media became another battlefield. Players who had previously interacted frequently online suddenly stopped liking one another's posts. Some posted inspirational messages about staying true to yourself or refusing to let others dim your light. Messages that fans immediately interpreted as being directed at someone specific. Fans began creating elaborate social media threads examining who attended whose parties, who belonged to which social circles, who appeared genuinely happy, and who seemed to be simply going through the motions. Behind the scenes, several people reportedly claimed the divide was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Team meetings allegedly became tense and ineffective. White continued emphasizing defensive control and structure, while some players reportedly wanted a faster, more instinctive style that gave the offense greater freedom. Neither side appeared willing to fully compromise because both believed their approach offered the best path to winning. Reports also suggested disagreements within the coaching staff. White's assistants supported her defensive philosophy and methodical approach, while others who had been with the organization longer allegedly worried that the system wasn't maximizing the roster's offensive talent. Players reportedly began noticing the lack of consistent messaging, which only increased the discomfort around practices. Routine drills became sources of disagreement.